as a at the risk of coming off as a dumb
Are
guy.
you going to do one of those, how is it to be a female something or other questions?
No, I was gonna say. Welcome back to the Comics Cube, everyone. I am with Torunn Grønbekk. I hope I said that right. Okay.
I want you
Hello.
to say it.
Sure, yes.
Okay, Torunn Grønbekk.
Torunn
Torunn
Grønbekk.
Grønbekk, whatever.
Okay. And your first name, it means something. Would you like to tell our viewers?
Well, the name Torunn, which is my first name, or Thorin, it means to be loved by Thor or to love Thor. So whenever I do try to explain my name to people, I just go, "Do you know the god Thor?" And most people go, "Sure." And I say, "Well, it's Thorun, because un means to love. So it's Thorun. That's my name."
And so with that, have you always liked the comics character Thor?
Well, I mean, I wasn't aware of the Marvel version when I was a kid. I had my version. We had a great Danish comic called Valhalla that I love, with all the characters in there. I mean, in that one, Thor is a lot stupider, a lot more like the myths in many ways. But it was always great. So when I kind of got aware that Marvel had its own version, I found my first instinct was like, well, he's a little too competent. You can't trick him as easily as you're supposed to be able to do. But I love him now. I adore Thor.
And yet, still in the context of the rest of the Marvel universe, still a little on the stupid side.
Well, I mean, he is on the blunt side, I suppose.
Okay.
But he always gets shit done. Like it's cool. But in the old stories, like most of them are about Thor being tricked somehow, mostly by Loki.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense in the Marvel version as well.
Yeah, Loki in the comics is much smarter than he is. And in the myths is not his half brother.
Well, no, I suppose it depends on how you look at it, because they don't share the same mother. But then none of, like, Odin, he was fucking around, I suppose.
He got around.
He got around, but I mean, they all did. We all like to have a good time up here in the north. It's just how it is.
Comics as a medium. Tell me about it. How did you get into it? What did you like about comics? What do you like about comics?
Oh, I get this question a lot. I used to read comics. We didn't have the Marvel comics the way you do, and I didn't have a comic book store near. So I read a lot of graphic novels. I'll show you Valhalla because I have it right here. This is my introduction to comics. And my mother, who is named Turid Frøydis after Freya.
Really?
Yes, of course. My entire family is named after some character or other. And I didn't think about this growing up, but this is just the way I was brought up. So Frøydis is it's either named after Frey, the god, the prey, or Freya. But she got me these because she was like, maybe you want to read some of our history or something. And that was I think that is when I fell in love with the medium. I read a bunch of other things as well, but I think Valhalla is the thing I remember the most. But then the shift came when I was comfortable reading English. So I could go to Oslo and buy things at the comic book store there. And that's when I started to read all the Vertigo stuff, all the Punisher, all the sad men, the sad angry men, all of those comics I read a bunch of when I was in my teens. And I think the reason I like to say that the reason I write comics instead of writing anything else is because of Steve Dillon. Because I knew I wanted to be a writer, but when I'm writing prose, I always get to the point where I start missing his silent panels. You know, they're just his reaction panels, and
Yeah.
they're so great because he does that. He did that better than anyone. Um, and so at some point I just kind of figured, well, I'll write comics then because I need those reaction panels.
So Steve Dillon, so Preacher,
Preacher, Hellblazer, like
Hellblazer.
anything he's ever touched, basically. Um, and I loved Preacher. Preacher was a huge deal for me. But I think I read his Hellblazer first.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did a run on Hellblazer before Garth came on, and then Garth and Steve did a run on Hellblazer that was great.
Yeah.
I don't remember the guy who wrote it before. And then at some point, I remember kind of going to the comic book store and going, "Hey, do you have any more of this Dillon guy? Because I just love this stuff. Do you have that?" And this was a time where I didn't have any money, so it's really random what I got and what I didn't. I have like one volume that was on sale of Hellblazer, whatever, and that was the one I had. So I have no kind of continuity of everything. I just got like whatever I could afford.
I
It
love
was
it.
like, yeah,
Yeah, I love it. Like the fact that you mentioned Steve Dillon, because I'm such a big Steve Dillon fan. I thought he drew, like you said, faces and expressions better than the average artist. Just the way he would show reactions. So would you say that's interesting because basically you're saying that the reason you write comics is because of an artist.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I remember the moment. I remember the book I was writing, and the moment I just went, "Oh fuck it, I'll just write comics." And I remember what I was uh, trying to explain in the book, and all I could think about was Steve Dillon.
And when it comes to the writing, do you try to channel any writer or like be inspired by any writers in particular?
No, I mean, I have the writers that I really love, but I don't think it works like that. I try to create things that would I like moments. I like little moments that will either teach you something or delight you or something like that. Um, and like Garth Ennis does really well with the help of Steve Dillon, of course, and Gaiman as well to a certain extent. Those tiny little poetic twists that are really nice and will leave you with something. Um, but I'm not sure how it translates from influence to my writing because everything I do, it feels like muscle memory. I just kind of get into it and I start. I'll write until um, it stops, until this pages stop screaming at me somehow. Um, and I'm not entirely sure how. I wouldn't be able to kind of go back and tell you why I did specific things. It's just all just muscle memory. I'm sure the things that I read growing up have kind of festered somewhere in the back of my mind.
What was the appeal of American comics to you? Because personally, when I see European comics, so I have a friend who lived in Switzerland and for a while, and when she came back to visit, she gave me like three things from Europe comics, and I gotta say the production quality of European comics is incredible. It's
Yeah.
and so like for in my mind, not being used to it, European comics blow me away. So what was it about American comics that still appealed to you,
Well,
despite
I
the
mean,
fact
I
that
do
yeah.
enjoy the European comics as well, but I think there is a certain kind of raw. It's not muddled, I suppose. The American comics, it's storytelling first and foremost, um, and there's no pretension at all. which I enjoy. Well, there is obviously many people who are extremely pretentious. Don't get me wrong, um, uh, but I like the stories they tell better than the European ones. Having said that, I do have like a bunch of my favorite European comics that I would not be able to pronounce because most of them are French.
Hmm.
Like The Hunting Party, it's a great book made by people whose name I can't say. That's something.
Is it to do with the fact that American comics tend to be thicker, like just to have more meat to their story?
I don't.
Because
I
European
think
comics tend to be
it's
thin.
and they tend to be thin and they tend to be like a tiny bit. Oh, I'm generalizing majorly here, but a little tiny bit depressing and maybe more uh
I get that.
internal somehow. But I mean I grew up reading. Do you have Lucky Luke?
I
That
don't have Lucky Luke, but Asterix and Tintin are,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Asterix was one of my favorite things in this world. I still love it. I still try to force my kids to read it,
The
but they have other
translations,
comics.
the translations in Asterix are like, I don't know how did they get away with it? How they do it? It's no matter what language it's in, it's well translated. The puns still work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. And I read those for one of the comics. I had them before I could read English, so most of the Asterix I read was in Norwegian, which is always cringy for me, but it still works. So for me, Lucky Luke, Asterix and Obelix is such a just major joy for me when I was growing up. But the thing about Lucky Luke is the kind of my mystical idea of what Texas, or
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Texas, just whatever that is, the
The
American
South, yeah.
West, the
The American
South, yeah,
West.
it's just, or well, South, yeah, I suppose Midwest. I don't know. It's just I have such a childhood fantasy of what that's supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
um, and which kind of meshes up with like my love for Preacher as well, because it's all kind
Yeah.
of the same. I love it. Um, and those are the stories you get when you go to America and you find whatever. But I mean, when I was growing up, I would read anything that I could get my hands on. Um, so like I'd read Sandman because that was a thing that most people at the time were buying. A lot of the Vertigo stuff it was so available around me. All my friends had it, so it was easy to get a hold of. I realized that there's a bunch of like the 90s comics that I wish I had been able to read, and especially the Marvel stuff because I'm not sure. I'm sure I've missed something that's really brilliant. So I'm trying to work my way back now that I have like money and Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah. That's the best part of being a comics fan today is you can pretty much have a way to read anything you want as long as you have the money to afford it. Because
Yeah,
when we were
try being a comics writer because then you can be like, well, it's research.
exactly.
I try to write off all the books I buy, being like, well, I need to read this, of course.
um, Jane Foster, you're working on Jane Foster books. Why do you love Jane Foster? You're on record saying that she's your favorite Thor.
Well, of course. I mean, of course. Well, I mean, I do absolutely love Thor, and so it would be complicated. But she makes uh, she wants it in a way that I really enjoy, and I think I love Jane Foster for many reasons. And there is there is such there's a drive to her that I find fascinating because she's been through so much horrible shit. Um, and you kind of have to take that into account when you look at her kindness and her goodness somehow. I admire her a lot. And so when she's like, well, I want to be Thor, it's not because she wants to just kill trolls, though that would be valid.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. But I like that. I like that there's always a reason. Um, there's a mindfulness about who she is. that is not grounded in, well, I want to be like she doesn't necessarily need the attention. She just takes it when she needs to get shit done, which I enjoy.
And again, she's been through a lot as a character. She's one of the biggest Jane Thor fans I know has basically said that she's probably been the most disrespected character in all of Thor's supporting cast until Jason Aaron got on her. So, given that, which elements of her history do you choose to emphasize? Which ones do you just kind of throw by the wayside? Basically, how do you approach writing her as a character?
Well, I think because she's been through so many things, and I think women read it differently than men do as well, just her history. And I try to just look at who she is right now, which is kind of the product of all of these things, and focus on the main losses that she's had, and the things that I kind of the things that I understand that are really important to the fandom as well. One of the fascinating things about getting the gig in the first place was the second it was announced, there was, I would say, 20 people who emailed me or messaged me on Twitter or something and just told me why they love Jane Foster so much, which would have been crippling if I didn't already. I had already written the first script, luckily, because it's just she's such an extremely important character for people. And I think the fact that she is a cancer survivor, that's one of those things that both for people who's been through treatment themselves, but also people who have lost people to cancer or to just prolonged sickness in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they found Jason's Thoron. And that's a part that we try to be really mindful about, that kind of part of her life. But I'm a mother as well. She lost her son. So I obviously try to keep that in mind when now she's supposed to kind of get her life back together. She's supposed to get her job at the hospital working, even though she has a horse living her in her apartment. A Yorkshire horse. Thanks, Al Ewing. I love Al. Fantastic. But I mean, Yorkshire is not my strong point.
Yeah, that was another question that I had is how did you get the job? Like how did it, and then how did you come to replace Al Ewing on this book?
Well, the way I understand it, Al had too much on his plate, which makes sense now when you see his output, which is, I mean, it's brilliant and it's a lot. And Jason needed a co-writer because he also has a lot of things. And I knew Jason well from before, and he'd read some of my stuff. So he sent something to Will and said, "What about Torunn? Wouldn't that be something?" And then, so they sent me an email, went, "Hey, do you want to do this? And if so, can we have a conversation tomorrow?" And then the first script in 2 weeks. And I just went, "That's a fucking dream. Like it couldn't be better for me."
What's the process of collaborating with Jason Aaron like?
Well, I mean, we had a call with Marvel, like before we did the first arc that we collaborated on, and then I called him up after. I'm like, "Hey, are you regretting this yet?" And he's like, "No, this will be fine." And I asked him how he wanted to do this, and he just said, do whatever you want. I'll be here for whatever you need. So, which is such a, I mean, I don't think you can write for Marvel Comics in a better, like your first book for Marvel in a better situation when you have like Jason going, "Do whatever you want, but if you need anything, I'll be here to help you or take a pass at it or whatever you want." And so he let me do basically whatever I want, but then I can just call him and go, "Hey, how do I fix this? What can we do?" And his mind works in mysterious ways. I'll be like, hey, how can we get to the hospital? And you're like, well, why don't you stop by the moon? Like, it's just, you have to kind of, you have to give it a few seconds to kind of get where he's going with it. And it's always brilliant. It's always better. Whenever I talk to Jason, everything turns a little better. So it's great.
I did an episode on the show with two women who love Thor, Jane Foster's Thor a lot, and one of the things that we all agreed on was if you looked at Jason Aaron, you wouldn't expect him to be able to write a woman too well, and you wouldn't expect him to be funny, but he's both.
Oh yeah. I think first of all, if you ever had a 10-minute conversation with Jason, you'll be like, of course he can write women because he is one of the most like it sounds horrible to use the word sensitive, but he's just so he's a mindful guy. He'll understand what's happening in a room, and it's to have like a nice hour-long conversation with Jason about the important things in life. That's one of the best things in this world. So I wouldn't be surprised by the first part because it's
Yeah.
and he is fantastically funny. And I mean that's one of the things that I work on quite a lot, trying to be kind of quippier. So sometimes it will be like I think in the script for Jane Foster 10, which is the last one in the last arc we did. I did the entire script and I sent it over to Jason, and he's like, "This is great, but Hildegarda needs to come running and going. I'm the goddess of not giving a damn,"
Not giving a
which is
damn.
just yeah, which is of course the thing that people will remember. It's the not, and it's Volstagg going, "I wish I had a bigger breakfast." Like the silly little things that are just so Jason. So I'll be over here kind of noodling away at my poetic bullshit about the world and the angry man. And then Jason will come in and be like, well, here's a quickly fucking brilliant line. I love him for that.
So is it safe to say that in an analogy, for example, you're driving the car and Jason is navigating. He's in the front seat.
Well, I think that it would be better to say that I'm driving the car and he's just singing in the passenger seat. And then
Until he needs to, yeah.
Well, I
At
mean,
some
I
point,
think,
you'll ask him.
oh yeah, the thing is, we
Okay.
talked through the stories first, and for the Mighty Valkyries, I was in Kansas last January, and I wanted to go to Arby's because I like to go to America and then go to all the places that I've just seen in the movies.
Yeah.
Of course, so I'm just like, oh, IHOP, let's do that, which is horrible. And Arby's, I mean,
yes, it
it
is.
is like, the thing about Arby's is they just kind of went, well, what do people want? They want meat. Do they want lettuce? No, no lettuce, no nothing, no fucking cucumber on the side, nothing. We want bread, we want meat, sauce. Let's do it. I guess it was fantastic. I mean, for that one time in Kansas with Jason Aaron, fantastic. And that's when we just talked through the story. That we didn't have all of it, just kind of the points that I wanted to hit some points. He had some things he wanted to get in there. I'll go back, I'll write an outline, I'll send it over to him. He'll be like, well, I want to do this instead. Always makes it better. I'll kind of go back and forth. And sometimes I'll text him things, the silly things like, you think Horse would say daddy issues? I'll get like, yes.
Unless I'm mistaken, you're the first direct Nordic person to be writing a Thor character on an ongoing basis. And when I say direct Nordic person, I mean somebody who's actually from there and not somebody who's descended from there. And you're also the first woman to be in a position to write a Thor character on a regular basis. There have been some that have, for example, I think Catherine Immonen and has written Sif, but it's for a very short run. So, and of course, Jane Foster is a former Thor at that. So what unique perspective or voice do you think that those aspects bring to the stories?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure if that's true. I haven't checked, but if it is, it's fun. I know I'm the first Norwegian because the Norwegian comic scene has pointed that out a few times. Um, but as for perspective, I don't know exactly. The thing about having a perspective is that you don't really realize it until other people kind of pointed out that uh, this isn't something that everyone knows. And like I said before, I grew up with Norse mythology, like it was a part of. Like we are not religious. Like my family isn't religious, so it was just like I think I know more about Norse mythology than I know about the Bible. Um, and we do have a certain, like, you know, the Bifrost.
Yeah.
Um, that's over there. Like there's a mountain over there, and because the there are mountains
Really?
surrounding it, yeah, and it rains a lot on that specific mountain, so there's always a rainbow going from the mountain. No,
So
yeah.
the
So
Bifrost
when
is visitable.
oh yeah, it's over there. Well, I mean, that's what my mom told me when we were growing up. We would drive past, and she was, "Oh, it's there, Thor's here because the Bifrost is there. The Bifrost is open." And my plan was obviously to go to the Bifrost and then go to Osgard, and I don't know the rest of the plan, but I was going there. I never managed to get to the mountain. Luckily, maybe. But yeah,
It's funny.
so I mean, we do have like the there's a certain a closeness to the mythology that I don't think about because it's just there all the time. But I find it's useful when we do like for the Mighty Valkyries now.
Mhm.
I'm doing a few things that are I'm just kind of picking things that I don't think is as well known in America about Norse mythology, but just always being a part of it for me. So it makes it in some ways easier to kind of add in a bit more mythic flair, I suppose.
And would you prefer Jane Foster, like if you had the choice, would you prefer Jane to write Jane Foster as Valkyrie or as Thor?
I think I would prefer to write her as Valkyrie. Um, I think it's interesting. I just had this. I was going to say conversation. I've had this conversation in my head, just because of something that will be apparent if you read through the rest of the King in Black: Return of the Valkyries. Um, but it is a part of her life that she did, and now she's moving on. And I think it is something really beautiful to have done something that was really valuable to you, and now and you can kind of look at it in the past and still see the value, but not wanting it back. If you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it is, and she's still extremely powerful in her own right. And she's kind of exchanged one set of abilities with another that is in many ways a lot more her. So as for Carrie, like I think, and Jason might have kind of picked up on this before he asked me to join him, but I don't see how it could be a character that I would feel more comfortable just jumping in and writing than Jane Foster as Valkyrie.
Hmm. I think also just to point it out, she's had two very, very awesome costumes
I
in
mean, the
succession.
best.
They're awesome costumes.
They're awesome.
You
And
did,
I mean, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, go ahead.
You did a story arc at the end of all things, and then the next one was immediately King in Black.
Yeah.
Comics writers in general have expressed a distaste for needing to work their titles into crossovers over the years. How did you, yeah, how did you feel about this? Like
Well,
so soon, so quickly.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I, I think for me, I mean, it was last year. It was a weird year in general. I was just ecstatic to be working again. I was ecstatic that comics was back on somehow. And the things we're doing, I find it feels differently to writing Jane Foster. It's less about her and more about the story and all the different characters that we bring in. We kind of just get like a tiny peek at all of them in the situation that they're in. So it's less of kind of her development as both a person and a Valkyrie. But having said that, I really enjoyed it. Um, Especially since the new Valkyrie that we're kind of bringing in, she's just so awesome. She's so like if we go on, like, my first instinct is the new Valkyrie, and my second instinct is the kindness that is Jane Foster. I kind of enjoy tremendously writing those two, kind of having them in the same story. It is a lot of fun, and then we get to play with Danny Moonstar and Hildegard, and it's been great. But I do feel like I've gotten comments on people who wants more Jane or more Danny, more Sentry. Like there is. We only have 4 issues for this one. It is a very big story that we're trying to tell, so we can't go too much into each character's kind of personal feelings and kind of development, which would be great, but we don't have the space for it.
It's already a big story within a big story. Plus, you have all the time in the world to write Jane Foster.
Oh yeah, well, hopefully.
No, you will.
I mean, hopefully. I mean, it is one of those things where I think people are enjoying having her back and having her have her own book. I do hope we get to continue writing her, of course. It is, for me, I think it's the most fun I've ever had. The Mighty Valkyries, the one that's launching in April, that is the most fun I've ever had with a comic book. We're doing some insanely fun things, and they have Mattia doing the art, which is just like these pages coming in, you wouldn't believe them. I just, yeah.
Speaking of the art, I wanted to ask you about the visual opportunities. You're a painter, so you can kind of see this in your head as you're writing it, I'm sure. The visual opportunities that these characters afford you, because I feel like Jane Foster gives you a lot of opportunities to play around with the form of comics, with the wings and the orbs with the skulls. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach it on a visual level?
Well, I mean, I've been blessed with working with some of the best people. I mean, the teams that I've gotten to work with are just so great. So as you said, I'm a painter. I do not do comic art at all, but I do think very visually. So I always try to I do a small sketch before I write everything down, and whenever I get things back, it just looks so cool. And we have, I think, one of the really cool things about Jane, just from like a nerdy standpoint, is just the all weapon Undriarn, which is just, it can turn into anything, and it is a kind of a blessing to be able to just go, well, the all weapon is doing this crazy shit now. Just do a huge panel of Jane with her weapon. Like it's great.
And you're putting Jane front and center, of course. And again, you've mentioned that you've introduced a new Valkyrie. She looks very specifically based on an existing Marvel Cinematic Universe character. Is there a directive? Like, I'm very curious about this. Is there a directive from higher up to do this, or did you guys do this, on your own?
Well, I can't talk too much about the kind of the I don't know, the holdings of it, but I will say that we have had all the freedom in the world to do basically whatever we wanted there. which has been just great. And she's a different character because she was a Valkyrie from way before, one of the first Valkyries. She's ancient, which it brings a kind of interesting perspective to Jane, who's kind of just learning the ropes and trying to figure out what being a Valkyrie is. And especially when I come in, because the thing about the Valkyries, not the Marvel Valkyries, but I was going to say the real Valkyries, but the mythic ones, they're violent, horrible things. And we're doing I'm trying to bring this in the most the kindest way I can, but they had all these kind of rituals that were kind of weaving entrails together in little huts they call the blood huts. And you think, oh, that sounds more poetic in Norwegian. It's just no, it's just blodhytta. It's so violent and horrible. Anyway, and I think it's interesting for Jane, who's kind of gotten the job, and she's discovering what it means to be a Valkyrie. And then you have the new Valkyrie, who isn't new because she's ancient and she already knows a lot about this, and she has to kind of adapt to how the world works now. And it's interesting. It's been we start them off in the Mighty Valkyries. They start off on very different places, like literally in different galaxies.
She's inside a celestial.
Oh well, I was thinking about the Mighty Valkyries, but yeah,
Well, the
thing is, in King in Black, she's been stuck in kind of the idea is that because a celestial, if a celestial dies, what would the soul want to do? And we kind of figured that a celestial, what it wants to do is to build a world. So if a celestial dies before it's able to create a world, it would just create a world for the dead instead, and just kind of try to pry in as many souls as it can to create its own little afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been stuck in there.
That's just like when you're describing something like that, I'm like, how'd you guys come up with that? That's incredible.
You can't ask me that. I don't know. It was 2020. We're all drunk. But I mean, it sort of makes sense, and it kind of went out of because of Null. His backstory is obviously that he killed a celestial, and then he was banished into the darkness or whatever, and he took refuge in the skull of the celestial, and that's when he forged the necro sword. And the skull became nowhere that we've seen in the movies and everything. Mm-hmm. The mining city. And we kind of figured what happened to the body that's still floating around somewhere, this huge celestial armor with a lot of celestial tech inside. So that was the origin for, obviously, major spoilers for King in Black, Return of the Valkyries. But if you read the second one, you should be fine.
I should hope you people have been reading King in Black, Return of the Valkyries.
What are you doing? Why are you listening to me?
Go read it now and then come back here. So I was actually surprised with issue number 2 because I had completely forgotten Danny Moonstar used to be a Valkyrie.
I mean, Danny is one of those characters that I feel like she's so complex and she's so cool. Mm-hmm. I don't see why she isn't used more. And I was trying to do research for. We know we wanted Danny the second we were doing Return of the Valkyries, and I just think she's marvelous. I really enjoyed writing her. I think she's awesome. And if you ever read the story where she is the Valkyrie, you should read that one as well. I don't remember actual issue, but you should read it.
It's a New Mutant Special. New Mutant Special? Yeah, something like that. I'm sure if you people Google New Mutant Special, it'll pop up. Um, so that leads. So this is. I'm gonna. I'm gonna ask this question anyway, even though I think I know what your answer is gonna be. Uh, what can we expect from the rest of King in Black: Return of the Valkyries?
I'm not sure, even sure I can say anything that wouldn't.
That's what I thought your answer would be.
Yeah, it's going to be more, more. We're up to our usual bullshit. I think what I'm been so many of the comments that came because people send me messages about when they read stuff, which is my favorite thing in this world. So you should keep doing that if you liked it. If not, please don't. And I'm happy to say that people are kind of following along, and especially because I know that when we announce the cover and people see all of these different characters and people are like, Brunhilde is my queen, I want her back, I want, like, or Danny for that matter. These are characters that are so special to so many people, and I wish we could have just kept on writing them forever and ever, and just we could have done a maxi series about these women returning to Valkyries. But I'm happy to say that because they were slightly disappointed that we didn't have all of them in the first issue. So I'm happy that people are kind of seeing that we're going to bring them all in. So stay tuned as we bring all the Valkyries together.
And of course, this will lead straight into the Mighty Valkyries title, which, as you have said, is the most fun you've ever had doing comics. Valkyries plural. So is it safe to say that Jane Foster won't be the sole main character of this one?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say. Well, I mean, she's still front and center, certainly. But I mean, I hate when people use the word epic and it's not epic. But it feels like a, I don't know. It's a big mythical story. And I'm not sure what else I can say. I really hope it's worth reading just for Mattia's art because it's so good. It'll make you cry, like I have done. Seriously, literally tears.
Well, I think we could talk about what's been solicited. So are you looking? I mean, you've obviously already written it, but what can we expect from everyone's favorite trickster god in this?
Well, that's the thing about Loki. You really shouldn't say anything because you don't want to ruin the kind of the surprise of him. But well, I will say that I really enjoy writing Loki. I think he's also a kind of underused character, and you can do so much fun and still extremely marvelly grand and big and huge with Loki as well. I'm not sure if you ever read Kieran's like Journey into Mystery.
Yeah, Kid Loki.
Yeah, so
yeah,
good.
so good.
So good. So I mean, I think, and we're kind of, there's so many things that I feel like we can explore in the future. So we'll see. I'm just going to say that I'm really enjoying writing Loki.
Here's my question about Loki. Due to the nature of this character, do you ever find yourself getting surprised with a, like, does the character ever dictate something, a course of action that you didn't have planned?
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, but always for the better. I think the best characters do when you have a general plan of what you want to do, and you pull a character in and go, well, you do this thing, and then you start writing it, and the character's like, no, well, we're going to do something grander and funner, and Loki will make things more interesting for sure. Loki is the only thing I've ever, I suggested something and Marvel went, oh, we can't do that. That's not going to work. That's the only that was a Loki thing that I can't say what because we're gonna change it around a little bit. Because my version in my head, the Loki that I grew up with, was little more extreme, even I think, than the Marvel version. But I like the Marvel version better. Feels like a
Yeah.
good friend. Feels like
Yeah.
a fun friend, not a good one. Feels
Yeah.
like a guy you want to have on the limited temporary trip somewhere, not like living in your backyard.
He's the guy you want at the party, but not the guy you want to stay afterwards.
Yes. No, he needs to go.
You
Yeah.
leave now. Yeah, one
Yeah,
of
yeah,
my,
but just stay for the fun part.
yeah, when my friends and I start talking about like Marvel villains, like in the movies, there's always somebody who says like, "Oh, Loki's the best one." I was like, actually, no, he's the worst one because he actually loses all the time. He's just the most fun one.
Yeah, I think that's maybe, but I love it when he actually uh do win a little bit. And I like that his version of winning is very different from the rest of us.
It's getting away.
Um, I mean, so yeah. I mean, I love Loki. I wish I would write Loki if I had the opportunity. I'm not sure why they didn't. I know they had like a 6 issue mini, Loki mini, but that went away. I'm not sure if there's some kind of politics happening there, but I would love to read
Yeah,
more
that
Loki. And
was
yeah,
really sudden when because after War of the Realms there were all these Thor spin-offs and then the Loki one just went away. I That was really curious. But yeah, I love Loki too because I mean, um, my niece is going through Jason Aaron's Thor run right now, and
how old is she?
she's 15.
Oh, then it's okay.
So she's going through it right
But
now, and then this whole time, like the first several trades, she's like, "Where's Loki?" I mean, they keep mentioning Loki, but where's Loki? At the time, Loki had another series, that's why he wasn't showing up. And finally, he shows up, and she's so happy that he's there. And then like 4 issues later, he stabs Frasier, and she goes, "I hate him so much." And I'm like, "What did you expect? You know what?" uh,
I like that she wanted Loki to appear. That's fun.
she
The
was like,
15-year-old girl who's like, "Oh, I miss Loki." That's brilliant.
I think also like it's just there's a lot of anticipation for him to show up, but then like he shows up and you're like, you expect him to be good? He's not gonna be good. Um, so the Mighty Valkyries also has Hela in it. What's it like writing Hela?
I mean, she's. I like her. I feel like she's. I think feel like she's the most like me. No, I don't know. Um, I love Hela. I love Hela as the queen of hell, or hell, I suppose. I think she's great, and as villains go, I like her a lot. But I do try to. We have Craven in the Mighty Valkyries as well, and
Craven is in the Mighty Valkyries?
Craven is in the Mighty Valkyries. He's yeah, I'm not spoiling anything. He's on the cover somewhere, I think. Um, and Craven is one of those villains that I kind of have to. You have to just go all in and be like, well, I'm going to commit to Craven now
Yeah.
because he has. I mean, everything about Craven is
Look at him.
fantastic, but then he has the nipple eyes, like the lion eyes right at the nipples, and you kind of go, oh yes, it's great.
Yeah, you have to
Um,
be you have to realize that Craven is a cheesy character at heart and just play to that completely.
yeah, you can't go into it with anyone. That's kind of with Hella as well. You can't just go be like, oh, she's a moody bitch. Like you have to kind of just embrace the villainess and try to make it interesting. And that's not a problem with Hella at all. Is I love her.
That's great. I must have completely missed Craven. I'm also a very big Spider-Man fan, so I'm like, Craven the
Right
Hunter?
now, just do you think
Would we know would you be able to tell us if people like Danny Moonstar will be sticking around?
I'm not going to say anything. You have to
Uh,
read.
all right, The Mighty Valkyries is out in April.
Yes.
Um, and of the artists you've worked with, it's only been a few issues that you've worked with here, but you've already worked with CAFU, Ramon Rosanas, Nina Vakueva, and you'll be working. I mean, he's already doing the covers. Mattia del Iulis. Um, what's it like working with all of these artists who have very distinct styles, but also have similar enough styles that there is still continuity in all of these works? What's that like?
Well, I mean, I try to at least try to get a feel about how much they want me to describe and how many, uh, how much they want from me in the descriptions. Like CAFU, you can just one line of anything is enough, and he'll just take the ball and run. But if I do write specifically something like he's a hipster dude, I think I wrote that in the Jane Foster 8. He'll draw me a hipster dude by all means, but if I don't, he'll just draw something else that'll work really well. I'm trying to kind of figure out how much they want me to give them, and then just see what they can do. And like with Mattia, like they're all absolutely great. And I think if you see Nina's art in Return of the Valkyries, she has this kind of way of rendering faces that are just so she gets emotion across in a really special way, which I really appreciate. Like as I talked about the silent panels and the Steve Dillon and everything, she's great at that. But she also does the like in Vanaheim, we have this kind of
Yeah.
I wanted the scenes in Vanaheim to feel really differently from the ones on Earth, where it's obviously there's null and there's darkness and misery, and then you have Vanaheim, which is just like a fantasy paradise. And it's interesting to see just when you kind of give her the ball, she'll run with it and do something amazing. So if I were to write more for Nina, I would just we would set it somewhere where she would be able to do more of that because it's just so good. But then again, she did. I think her version of Manhattan and the Null fight is, I mean, one of the more interesting ones. I think it's visually stunning, and especially with Tamra's colors, which are just astounding. I've been lucky to work with these people.
Which of, aside from Jane Foster herself, which of Jane's supporting cast, or cast of characters that you've written so far, have you enjoyed writing the most? And the horse counts as an option.
I mean, horse is always great, except that I have to write it in Yorkshire. And then I do. And then I kind of screen tested with some Americans, go, do you understand what horse is saying now? And they're like, no, I have no idea. So you have to have like this kind of in-between version of Yorkshire and, language.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's always, it is the most fun, but it's also the most kind of, I know Al could do it anytime, anywhere, because I'm sure he could talk Yorkshire. But it takes a lot, but it's a lot of fun. And
well, he also invented him, so it should be easier for him to do.
I'm not sure if you saw this in the last trade. We printed the How to Horse, because he wrote that for me and Jason, of course. How to Horse, just a document with just how do you do it.
Oh yeah, it is here.
Yeah, that is the most valuable piece of data I have on my computer. I use that 15,000 times a day, I feel like.
I love it.
Yeah. So I mean, horse is fantastic, but writing, I think the new Valkyrie is the one that I've enjoyed the most. I like them all. I like Sif a lot. I wish we could do a bunch of stuff with Sif. I think she's great. And And Danny is also brilliant. But of all of them, I would say the new Valkyrie is the one that I enjoy the most.
I was always curious. Like I wrote a whole thing on my website a few years ago. I was where I was like, why isn't Sif a bigger character? And the only thing I can think of is she doesn't have a marketable name.
No, maybe she doesn't. I'm not sure. Sif in Norwegian is Siv, which so I always confuse the two. And Siv is she's kind of she's a character in my head because she's such a big part of the myths, and I know a bunch of Sieves. So I always loved her, and then I just kind of got used to saying Sif instead, or try to. But I mean, there's a bunch of people who doesn't have the most marketable names in this. I mean, we have Volstag and Hildegard, like it's strange names.
Earlier, you mentioned that you think that female Jane Foster fans read it differently from male Jane Foster fans. So at the risk of coming off as a dumb guy,
are you going to do one of those how is it to be a female something or other question?
No, I was gonna say why do you think it's different, like from what you've noticed?
I suppose I think a lot of the guys, especially that I've noticed after I started writing it, and people ask, "Oh, you write for Marvel? What do you write?" And I go, "Jane Foster," and they go, "Who is that?" "Oh, she's the love interest." And I think a lot of the women who have read Thor hasn't necessarily just seen her as the love interest. But I mean, this is me generalizing. I know, especially now and after World of Realms, a bunch of the people who contact me and tell me their stories about different, usually quite horrible things that has happened in their life. A lot of them are men. So I'm not saying after Jason took over, I think a bunch of people see her differently, both men and women. But the people who've just seen the movies, I feel like there's like maybe the women saw something different in Jane than the men did. Maybe they just saw Natalie Portman and went, "Oh, she's just so beautiful." She is.
Yeah, like I mentioned, like I know somebody whose favorite character is Jane, and it was Jane even before she was Thor, which I think took me by surprise, because like my favorite character is not Steve Trevor, no, but Jane is a better character.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about with the Valkyries before we move on to talking about your painting?
I'm just gonna spoil something. No, just read Mighty Valkyries. It's going to be. I mean, if I fuck it up, then trust me, Mattia is bringing it. So just read it for that. The horse is still with us.
So you're a painter. How does painting? Well, first, who are your artistic influences when it comes to painting?
I mean, I do. Is it weird if I say it's Steve Dillon again?
No.
Because the thing is, I paint mostly people, mostly close-up people, and I try to capture some kind of expression, some kind of thing that makes them a character. And I do this. I've done it always. That I had an exhibition a few years ago where I did like short stories that were just one painting and one tiny line of text that was supposed to kind of add to who the person you were looking at, like who they were. And I think a lot of my influences are comics or just stories or just trying to capture some kind of some character, some person or a moment somehow. All sounds really pretentious. Always when you talk about art, you sound like a douchebag.
I don't think
But
so.
I mean, but that is like the what I like in like, the motifs that I choose. Then I do love a bunch of like Odd Nerdrum or Mark Ryden, which is a whole different thing. It's like a surrealist painter that I adore. Or Keith Burns, who also does comic art. But he paints. I'm a huge fan of. I like my military history, and I especially enjoy airplanes, like
Hmm.
warplanes. Thing I yeah, aircraft in general, and he paints the most just stunning scenes. That I just I'm doing a painting now that is almost like it's heavily inspired by Keith, I suppose. But that's just the things that I choose to have in my house are really different from the things that I paint, I suppose.
I have a question for you because you keep mentioning Steve Dillon. Um, Preacher, like Jesse and Tulip are my favorite comic book couple like ever. Um, but I just have to ask this. Um, Preacher, when it was coming out, caused a lot of controversy because of all the swearing, among other things. As a European, do you think that's ridiculous?
Yes,
It's
yes.
stupid,
The thing
right?
is, I'm not only in the like I'm Norwegian. We don't take anything seriously. We swear a lot. We kind of I suppose we used to have some kind of church, and people do attend it still. But we're not a religious people, so the whole controversy about the God thing, it was just kind of I didn't get the. I just enjoyed the stories, and then
Yeah.
I understood later that it was a huge kind of controversial thing.
Yeah, it was
I didn't
this
even know the swearing was a problem.
seriously. Um and is there an urge in the future to do comics art as well?
I mean, not even a little
Really?
bit. God, no.
That's interesting.
Imagine.
Why not? Because
Because it's so hard. I mean, you get some horrible person like me telling you what to do. Be like, well, I like everything you did there because you just turned the person. Oh no, no, I don't think I'm talented enough to attempt it, and I think my painting is it's the closest thing I get to meditation when I put on an audiobook and I sit down and I spend 30 hours painting the same face. Um, can you imagine having to do that? Except that it's not one face; it's the same face 7 times on one page. I could never do it.
and would you like to take this time to plug your other works?
Well, can you ask me again in like a few months? The thing is,
I'd
the
love
most
to.
annoying. Yes, let's do
Talk
that. I'll
about we
talk
talk
about
about
all the things.
all of the
The,
Valkyries that will have already been spoiled by then.
yes, the
We can
Valkyries
talk
and the
about that.
other stuff, and I do have like the thing about last year. Like I suppose a lot of people struggle with this last year. One thing is that the books were paused or cancelled or pushed, but I had a couple of creator-owned books that are just the subject matter didn't feel like it didn't feel tasteful to try to publish during a global pandemic. And I need to seriously adjust them to be able to make them work, I think. Um, which was hard to kind of figure out how to handle something that is so global and so uncertain as the pandemic. Um, so kind of put a damper on a lot of the creator owned works I've been doing. But it feels easier now somehow. I'm not sure if it's the new year or just the fact that people are getting vaccinated and we can kind of see, if not a light in the tunnel, maybe the air is getting a little less stale or something.
Or
So
or
hopefully
people
there
are just
will
getting used to
be.
it. We
Yeah,
hope
that's
not.
a depressing thought.
That's a depressing
We're
thought.
just being like, well, this is the life we're living now. No, but it feels easier. It doesn't feel as I think so. I will get some creator owned books out as well this year, hopefully. And there will be more Marvel stuff as well. So I'll happily plug it when we get there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been a great interview.
Thank you. It's nice to talk to someone.
The Mighty Valkyries out in April, everyone. And finish King in Black.
Finish King in Black. Go read.